Ah yes, another year has passed and I'm a little older and a little wiser, and I find myself indulging once again in the Chucky TV series. When I first started reviewing this show, I kinda did that first video on a whim and never really had plans to continue, but the response to that video only pushed me to want to make more videos about it. And as a result, my channel is now forever linked with the character of Chucky. I'm not kidding, if you type ReelShift in the YouTube search bar, Chucky comes up with it. It's literally synchronicity at this point. And what makes it even crazier is that the main Chucky doll this season is being referred to as Joseph. Either I'm being pranked or this is just so perfect that it can't even be made up. Here's to another season of criticizing this show and pissing off some people who take this stuff way too seriously. Let's discuss.
I watch so you don't have to.
So this season of Chucky, according to the behind-the-scenes featurette that aired after the episode, is designed so you can pick right up with this season without having watched the first two seasons. It's a soft reset of sorts, which is interesting for a couple of reasons. For one, I just suggested a couple of weeks ago that this season should be a full reset for the show, so in that aspect I was at least half right.
Man, I'm tired of being right.
And on a personal note, are they telling me that I didn't have to suffer through those first two seasons? Because that's just cruel and unusual punishment. This season begins with Chucky in the White House, which again I said sounds like a pretty interesting concept if they have the right people to pull it off. I'm still not convinced that Don Mancini has an almost completely lost touch with his own creation, but I will say this White House portion of the episode wasn't all that bad.
You serious?
In fact, a lot of it was in line with what I would expect from a situation where Chucky is free to manipulate and meddle while unsuspectingly operating in that setting. We have the first kid who is not happy about his new home because he believes that the White House is haunted. Now obviously, this is most likely Chucky, or Joseph as the kid calls him, messing with him, but I did appreciate the fact that they gave reasons for why this kid trusts and is so attached to his Chucky doll at this point in his life. It makes Chucky's existence in the White House seem less random. Chucky is basically a tool being used to help this kid cope with recent tragedies he's had in his life, which puts Chucky in a perfect situation to corrupt this kid at some point down the line.
That makes sense.
Chucky doesn't waste any time getting right to the murdering, as he shoots and kills a Secret Service agent and then stages it as a suicide. This is going to be a big challenge for them throughout this season, as they will have to keep coming up with different ways to hide or misdirect people away from Chucky's murders, at least if Chucky plans on keeping a somewhat low profile for a while staying at the White House. The new cast of characters consists of members of the first family, Secret Service agents, and a very curious reporter who smells something fishy going on at the White House.
Wait a minute. Hang on a second.
The president is played by Devon Sawa, who is now playing his third different character in this series. His character is the self-proclaimed President Transparency. Apparently his whole campaign revolved around him not hiding things and keeping people in the loop. And I'm sure even fictional politically crazed voters fell for that line of bull just as fast as they would have in real life.
It fooled me, we can't get fooled again.
It's clear that Chucky's actions will create a situation where things keep happening that look very suspicious, and it's going to test the limits of his transparency policy if in fact it is legit. The president also has another son, a pot-smoking anti-establishment teenager who also likes to keep things transparent as he makes TikToks from a top-secret bunker in the basement of the White House. I think I already found a candidate for possibly the most annoying new character in the series.
What an idiot! Oh, what a loser!
And by the way, the president and the first lady like to smoke a little weed too. I assume it's very stressful to run a country, deal with possible security risks, and to pick out drapes. After one episode, I haven't noticed any political commentary that came off as very overt and cringe as of yet, but I'm just going to say give it time because this season is still young.
He's out of line, but he's right.
So at this point, things were going okay. I wasn't completely miserable watching this episode. And then the worst thing imaginable happened. This soft reset of a season decided to bring back the worst thing about seasons 1 and 2. And of course, I'm talking about the characters of Jake and Lexy. Devin gets a pass, again, for now, because I'm still of the opinion that he's the infinitely more interesting character and probably should have been the lead. So apparently Jake is now some kind of online influencer who makes weird art out of old dolls, and he uses his platform to get information about possible Chucky sightings. And Lexy is, in her own words, a thirst-trapped TikToker who lures in simps with terrible dance moves. And she is using her platform to find her sister.
I don't care!
I'm going to assume this is some kind of meta commentary on talentless and unlikable people having platforms that they don't deserve. And if so, it actually makes perfect sense to use those two characters in that role. Because after all, who is more unlikable than them? They all take a break from creating content so Jake and Devin can have a date. A date where they awkwardly relay Titanic references to each other.
It's been 84 years.
Devin, I have to be honest, your association with Jake and willingness to put up with his punchable face is really testing my patience with you. Eventually, they are all contacted by Chucky, who teases his location to them, and then his location is revealed to them just a few moments later on the news, and apparently they just wasted our time. So now the plan is to somehow infiltrate the White House and kill Chucky, or at least that's what Jake says.
You big dummy!
Once again, this show started off not half bad, but kind of ruined it by reintroducing us to these poorly written, poorly acted characters that are nothing more than a nuisance. The idea in any story should be to create protagonists that the audience can root for, but every time these two in particular are on screen, I just find myself rooting for Chucky to win. I hate to bring up the original Child's Play again, but I'm going to because it's still peak Chucky. Because he was actually somewhat still scary in that movie, and not portrayed as a parody like he is in this series. And of course we had Andy, the face of innocence, and his mother, who it was very easy to pull for as an audience when they were thrust into this conflict with an evil doll. Continuing to go back to the Jake and Lexy well is getting tiring, and I think it takes away from what could be a much better story.
Stop it!
Why isn't the first kid, Henry, the sole focus of attention this season? More so than that, I'm not even sure why Chucky gives a about Jake and Lexy anymore enough to taunt them. He's in a position at the White House where he literally has a country at his fingertips. He has the opportunity to disrupt the infrastructure of the entire United States, and yet he's still playing around with Jake and the gang for reasons. The truth of the matter is that these characters really weren't needed anymore. I understand that the logical thing tells you that Lexy would be looking for her sister, but does anybody really care?
How can you not care?
Like this.
To me, this first episode was already a missed opportunity to take this show in a new direction. But instead, they just fell back on what they did before. It just has a shiny new backdrop. What we are in for is another season of back and forth between Jake and Chucky that is nowhere near as fun or as interesting as they think it is. Yeah. I think it's happening again.
Y'all be cool. Right on.